this thing on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Kyron Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing good, man. Had to go do a fingerprint test today for the upcoming new job, and took longer than I expected. So, thankfully, no problems. It just took forever for no reason.
Yeah, we've been talking about this. I don't understand why they needed so many of your fingers.
Yeah. I only have 10. It's crazy.
Exactly. I know. But all right, guys, we're here to talk about the NFL Combine first, and then we're going to get into our mock draft 3.0. And this time we're doing something a little bit different, which Randy kind of talked about Friday. But if you didn't catch that episode, we're going to use an industry mock, and we used Kyle Krabs's from the Draft Network because I like that one the best, and Randy gave me the option. So shout out Kyle Krabs for writing his mock today. But we're going to use that for the first round, and then we're going to mock draft the second round because, like Randy put it on Friday, we're already starting to get tired of talking about the same players over and over, and I'm sure people are getting tired of hearing us talk about the same players over and over and over, and there's only so many things that we can say. So,
well, it also allows us to talk about a couple new teams as well. So
yeah, poor Seahawks fans. They never get to have fun during draft season, at least. You know,
well, when they have first round picks, they reach on edges anyways. So,
or linebackers. Shout out Jordan Brooks.
At this point, is a reach, probably, kind of, slightly.
Still, yes, but he's playing well. That's good.
Yeah.
But first, let's get into the combine a little bit. So, we'll just talk through some winners and some losers. We just talked about this before we got on. The biggest winner was Georgia as a school. All of them were athletic freaks. I believe 6 of them had relative athletic scores over 9, which is just a ridiculous number. Jordan Davis has a perfect 10 currently. Randy, what did you think of the Georgia just slaughter of the rest of the field out there?
Yeah, I think it'd be even more. I believe Nakobe Dean didn't do most of the testing. So at his pro day, we're going to probably get another at least 8.5, 9. I know Pickens was about an 8.5 or so, because he's, I think, like weight and like vertical were his, like something like that. Not everyone finished every drill that it counts for the RS score either. So some of these may go up and down, but the biggest standout, unfortunately for every other Georgia player, is Jordan Davis, who was always the biggest standout at Georgia, literally. He is an enormous dude that should not be able to run a 4.740. That is not okay.
No, you should. Well, so I didn't watch that live. I was watching the Batman.
I was scared.
And when I watched it back, because the replay was on the next day, when I watched it back, Daniel Jeremiah got so excited when he ran a 4.7, which rightfully so. I feel like the audience that was there, the fans that were there, had no idea what to do because you could hear them kind of gasp when he finished. So shout out to everyone who was in the know that was able to attend the combine, because that was a cool little aspect where they would get like a round of applause after too. But my God, was that just absurd.
Ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
It physically shouldn't be a thing. Like, that just does not make sense at all. And he, did it at his playing weight at Georgia as well. So it's not like he lost 20 pounds and came into the combine more shredded than the season or something. Maybe a little bit more air in his lungs than it seemed on the field, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The more you think about like the whole questions of Jordan Davis, it starts to you start to not care as much when you start to realize like his backup's probably going to be a top 15 pick at D tackle in a year, maybe 2 years. I don't remember. Like, and he had to get on the field, so they just kept rotating him off. But yeah, there's some concerns there. But Jesus, I don't see him getting out of the top 20 now.
No, not top 20. And I still do have the concerns, but I didn't think he was that level of athlete. For what it's worth, in the RAS database from Kent Lee Platt, who does a really good job with all of that, and shout out to his Twitter for being just probably nuts over the weekend. But he tweeted out that he is the second most athletic player ever behind Calvin Johnson. So that's significant.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I didn't, you see that on tape. You see the burst, and you see the strength, and you see all of it, but it came in such like small little, like first and second down, and then he's off the field. If he can work into a 3-down player, like we could be looking at the best player from this draft class. He has that type of upside, and he definitely helped himself here.
Yeah.
Trayvon Walker as well. I mean, geez, he's the third defensive end prospect. I still don't think he's an edge rusher, but he's just behind Myles Garrett and one other person. So he helped himself quite a bit. I think he pushed himself into top 10. Randy, do you think that's outlandish?
I don't think that's outlandish. I would still give it that like top 15, just with that bridge gap of like Eagles at 15, because there's a lot of really good edges in this class, and some are more projects than others, and so there's a little bit of give and take there with where they're going to land, and we're going to see that in the mock here in a bit. But yeah, he would have been the talk of the town if Jordan Davis wasn't there. Like that's the shit thing for him, is he was incredible, but because a bigger person just did better, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. Obviously, I know Walker, most of the tests were technically better because, he's not 340 pounds, but that speed is ridiculous. I think that's why he's going to be drafted as the edge. I know that you're more of a fight into the D tackle or, a 3-4 edge kind of scenario.
That's perfect for him.
Yeah. I think he could do all of it, clearly. Because at 270 running a 4.5, that's just not okay. Again,
it's absurd, man.
It's becoming very apparent why Georgia, with a so-so offense at times, just dominated college football this last year.
Yeah. All right, let's talk through a couple more players that didn't
Georgia.
attend. Didn't attend Georgia. Breece Hall was one that I think really improved his stock. We had the questions about he doesn't play. Now, I will say his play speed is not that of one of the top 10 most athletic performers at the running back position, but he kind of silenced a little bit of the question marks around his athleticism, and I think he kind of just set himself apart from the rest of the running back field, especially with Isaiah Spiller not testing outside of the explosives, and they were not good. And Kenneth Walker had a good day of testing, but we kind of expected that, I think. Breece I was shocked that he ran low 4.4s, or he ran on the 4.3s when all was said and done.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think we were shocked with the Kenneth Walker numbers to an extent as well, for the same reason, where we thought both were athletes, clearly, but
right.
This is more of a plus athlete kind of scenario at the position, which is more impressive and kind of hypes up the running back class a bit more, with the obvious current hits of Spiller and Kyron, which we'll get into in a second. But both of them really stood out. I think they both solidified themselves as most likely round 2 picks. It's the running back position, so anything's on the table. One of them might be in the third, or one could sneak in the back end of the first. I just don't. I mean, like we both have Hall graded that way, but doesn't mean we think it's going to happen. So both stood out and they did what they were supposed to do. I know some people thought they both looked a little sluggish during the on-field drills. I think it's because they didn't necessarily need those drills, so we know what they do. That they were trying to get all the athletic numbers in and use the tape for the rest, in my opinion. And I think Kenneth Walker did enough catching the ball where I think I'm justified at the the grade I gave him, just a little bit plus of an average score.
Yeah.
I don't think 2 or 3 drills you could really grade anything past that because we haven't seen anything else. But I would not be shocked if he becomes a decent pass catcher. He did a good job trying to avoid body catching, so that was a good sign. That's what I wanted to see from him.
Yeah. He looked a little awkward on a couple, but I mean, overall, I'll take it. I'll take it. He doesn't get that kind of work anyway, and he might at the next level, but yeah. And then the last winner that I think we should talk about is Christian Watson, who also performed
biased.
like an insane athlete. He runs in the 4.3s after being 6'4" and over 200 pounds. He jumped, I believe, 40 or 38, 39, something like that.
Something ridiculous.
And then his broad jump was close to 11 feet. So just an absurd athlete. And that showed up on tape. Where I have some issues is on one discussion, and I'm not there yet. But I think you know what you're going to get with Christian Watson, and it was definitely on display this last weekend.
Yeah, it's a top end athlete that has played at a lower level, but has played high level at that level, and with the age and with what he's doing right now, there's still some stuff he needs to work out, whether it be concentration stuff or a little bit here, a little bit there. I think improved route running against higher competition obviously is something we're going to look for, but I think he is a relatively win now player for our team. Just like we talked about guys like Jermaine Johnson. Obviously, I don't think he's going. Watson's going top 10 or something like that, like Johnson may. But both are in the same kind of athlete where they've fleshed out their needs in the college schemes and have now are really able to make day one impacts. And maybe it's not a 12-year, 13-year, 15-year career, but I think they could absolutely reach that level, but I think they could start off strong as hell.
Yeah. Some losers or just guys that kind of killed their stock. Kyron Williams is the big one. It's kind of a bummer. I think he should have sat out all of the drills because when his explosives came through, I said, oh, this is going to be really bad. This is not going to be good. There were rumors that he was a 4.7 guy. And I said, no, like he's a 4.6 guy. He's got to be a 4.6 guy.
She is.
He ends up being a 4.6 guy, but the initial numbers were 4.7s. And we know now that, or we assume that this is a fast track. So he's running 4.6s on a fast track. It's not good. None of his athletic testing was good. He ended up with one of the lower relative athletic scores. He's in the Demetric Felton range, which is not a good place to be. And we've had this debate, and I mean, that stuff matters to an extent, especially when athleticism is part of our film grade. He bumped from, I think he was my RB5 coming in. He is now my RB16. So,
he did not jump that far for me. He was my RB4. I believe he's RB7 now. Okay. I think that just speaks to the depth of the class, that like how we judge it. But you also have more running backs greater than me, so fair enough. But he clearly wouldn't drop much further than that. I got the ones I think are relatively meaningful in my opinion, and he still stacks up highly because he does a lot of things well. I don't think either of us thought he would be gone before maybe late second anyways, most likely a round 3 player. I think at this point his highest hope is back end round 3. Most likely he's going to be a day 3 pick now because of these athletic numbers. People will still bet on the film, which they rightfully should, but they are also going to not spend high draft capital with those kind of testing numbers just in case, because they're not going to care if the 4th round pick doesn't pan out for the future and he just gives you a good receiving back for the next 3 years.
Yeah. And if he gets drafted in the 4th or 5th and that knocks his value down for rookie drafts, I might return to being in, although I think I'd probably take shots on other guys. But I'm pretty out on Kyron right now. I'm a little nervous about what his outlook is. I hope he can find a role. I just think James White might be a ceiling instead of Austin Eckler. And James White's a nice ceiling.
Yeah,
That's a good
James
ceiling to
White
have.
usage is a RB1, back really top end RB2. In his true playing days. I don't know if those are over or not right now, but
Right.
we'll see on that regard. But I think Kyron is very, very valuable for a team in the day 3 now. Um, but listen, we both thought Michael Carter should have been gone day 2, and he went top of day 3 last year, and I think we both can say that's worked out pretty well for the Jets. I think something similar could happen for whatever team takes a shot at him. But we have to see. I'm curious if he tests these athletic skills at his pro day, or he just says, I don't know.
I think he's going to be hurt the day before, so he doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, well, because like if you do test better, it shows like, hey, yeah, it was just a bad day. But if you test the same, those are you.
Yeah,
that's you.
then you're in
And
trouble.
that's
And
not
he,
necessarily a bad thing. He could still be a valuable fantasy asset at those testing numbers. It's just,
yeah,
yeah.
a long shot. We were talking about it Friday, I think, after all of this, and we were like, well, what did Austin Eckler run? And Austin Eckler ran 4.4s and was like an elite jumper, and so
Yeah.
so I think that's off the table. Another guy, just really quick, Kenny Pickett, tiny hands.
Kid gloves.
Kenny Kid Gloves, yeah, that's his new nickname, as dubbed by Randy, and and yeah, I mean, I think that's going to matter to some teams. There was an article that came out that it wasn't a very good article, so I don't actually want to cite it. But basically, Teddy Bridgewater was thought of as a top 10 pick for the entirety of his senior year. He got his hands measured, and then he fell into the 20s. I think we're going to see that, except I think Pickett might fall out of the first round. I think that is a reasonable outcome here. Really quickly, Traylon Burks did not test the way we thought he was going to test. Kind of a bummer. I thought that he was going to be like jumping out of the gym because that's what he does on film, and he jumped 33 inches, and it was not good. So it really kind of, that top tier of wide receivers was all very close. And I think you're going to see him as like wide receiver 3 or 4 on a lot of lists now, which is rightfully so because they were so close at the top.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he still can't be the best receiver in the class when all stuff's done, and doesn't mean he still isn't versatile and all that. It's just he didn't test well, he didn't test bad. He just didn't test
Elite.
as an elite athletic freak for these measurables.
Right.
Like his test, his field shows an elite athletic freak, obviously.
Yeah. All right. We need to get into this mock draft or we're going to be here all night. So, Randy, why don't you walk us through Kyle Krabs' first round so that we have a basis for what we're looking at.
All right. Yeah. So, obviously, go to TDN and check out Krabs and all the amazing people that work there. We honestly, we enjoy talking to a lot of those people. Especially got to have Damian Parsons on here last year, so shout out to him. I was kind of hoping he put one on today because I was going to use that instead. But Krabs will definitely work. Don't get me wrong. But starting off, Evan Neal for the Jaguars, followed by Aiden Hutchinson to the Lions. Kyle Hamilton with some below expectation numbers, not really bad numbers, but just the 40th was below expectation. Still goes number 3 to the Texans. Jets followed up with Ikem Ekwonu, who tested really well. Giants with Kayvon Thibodeau. Panthers, Charles Cross. Giants, Trevor Penning. And Falcons, Trayvon Walker, all the way shot back up, thankfully for them. Broncos actually keep their pick because no trades. Jermaine Johnson. Jets get Sauce Gardner, so same shit as always, it seems like for them. Tackle, then corner. I'm not sure, but we'll see. Commanders get Malik Willis in this one, which is quickly somewhat of a shock for Krabs to put in here. It seems like the Washington is not a fan of this class necessarily, especially in the first round, and are looking to get a veteran instead, which kind of fits with the coach and what they've kind of done in the past as well. So that makes sense, but still, he's the first QB off the board here at 11 to Washington, followed up by Trent McDuffie to the Vikings at 12, which is surprising a lot of people I saw on Twitter. But that's some other testing numbers coming out that made some other people fall. Browns get the first receiver in Jamison Williams from Bama. Probably
I've been calling that, man.
Yeah, I
Not
know you
not to the
have.
Browns, but him
I
being the
know.
first receiver.
He
I think it happens.
quickly, there's a very good shot he is the best receiver in this class. So let's just
Oh
make
yeah.
that plain and simple. There's also a good shot he does not really miss time during the season this year. He may miss rookie minicamp, may miss minicamp and all the training, but it doesn't mean he can't play right away. So we'll see on that. And I think this would also spell in the Browns signing a receiver in free agency.
Yeah.
Ravens follow that up with Derek Stingley Jr., uber talented player following to the Ravens. Shocker. Eagles get Andrew Booth Jr., the corner from Clemson. Smart move there, I think. David Ojabo is followed up by the Eagles there. After that, get Edge of the Future. Jordan Davis, the athletic freak and monster, goes to the Chargers at 17. Saints address wide receiver problems, possibly getting rid of a wide receiver from OSU and bringing another one in with Garrett Wilson here. Tyler Linderbaum is the last first-round pick for the Eagles here. Get possible center of the future and just the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. Steelers get quarterback of the future and Matt Corral. Patriots get Devin Lloyd, who tested slightly slower on long speed stuff, which is what we were concerned about, but does fit the Patriots mold. Raiders get Devontae Wyatt, the D-tack from Georgia, to shore up the middle. Cardinals get Zion Johnson, which I've been calling for about a month now. Cowboys get Perion Winfrey from Oklahoma. We know they love their Oklahoma players. Bills get Treylon Burks. He gets to follow the Bills. Bills are continually mocked, one of the best receivers in the draft. And I think there's a lot of smoke there. George Karlaftis falls all the way to 26 of the Titans. There's a lot of talk during the combine that the media mocking him top 10 was a lot of rich for the league's blood. I still think he's a first-round player, and it's clear that he's going to be here. So, and then followed up, the Dolphins get Jahan Dotson at wide receiver from Penn State over multiple other receivers, especially followed up here by the Chiefs. Oh my God, I switched so far. 27 Buccaneers, Drake London, my bad. Packers followed up with Boye Mafe, the edge from Minnesota. It fits what they want an edge. Seems like they're cutting some of their depth veteran players, so it makes sense. Then Dolphins get Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver from Penn State, followed by Chiefs getting Chris Olave from Ohio State. Screw that. After those testing numbers, putting Olave in that system with his route running is not fair. Bengals get quite possibly the best interior offensive lineman of the draft, arguably, but testing showed he's definitely a guard, and Kenyon Green. I think that's a good fit. There's a good chance, in my opinion, the Bengals trade this pick for Laramie Tunsil, but it didn't happen here. Lions get Nakobe Dean, the linebacker from Georgia, who definitely should be a first-round pick and somehow went all the way at 32. The Lions got an absolute steal getting Hutchinson and Nakobe Dean, getting absolute staples of the future for this defense.
Yeah. So one of my main takeaways from this is there are about 50 guys that I think could go in the first.
Which happens every year after the combine. So shocker there. That's why we stick to our grades.
Exactly.
Because this is what happens.
And I do want to announce that while Randy was doing that, I actually made a pivot on one of my picks. So all of the graphics that I made are gonna be wrong, but bear with me. I'll point it out when we get there because I'm not going back and fixing the graphics. But I had an oversight. So I had to fix it.
I'm gonna need you to not do that because that could affect later in the draft here.
I know, yeah, and we might just go off the rails here, but we're gonna start it off. So yes, yeah. So the way we're doing this is I took the AFC and Randy took the NFC, so we're not just alternating. We're gonna pick 4 conferences, and that means that I am starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars at the top of the second, and I went with George Pickens, the wide receiver out of Georgia. I think there's a chance after his testing that he is a first round pick. I was gonna say the first wide receiver off the board. I don't think that that's in the cards for him, but this is an athletic freak that he has obviously been injured at Georgia that has really, really good freshman film. He had things to clean up. He has some off the field stuff, but I am not overly concerned now. I'm coming around on Pickens, which is kind of funny after my Twitter escapades a couple weeks ago, a month ago or so. But so Pickens to the Jaguars to be their wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think the round one talk, I'm definitely a little bit low on, especially from our grades, which we'll get into next week. But there's just so many receivers that are possibly coming off the board round one. It's hard to see him getting ahead of them, but I would say teams like, let's go. I mean, Bills, I think it works. Titans, it kind of works, not really. But Chiefs, Packers, Chiefs, and Lions, I think it all works really, because it fits a possible need for them. So if those are the landing spots in the late first, I think it does make sense for Pickens. I still think he's a little bit lower on my board here, especially with the talent around here, but and just more needs for the Jaguars. But we'll see what happens in free agency. He's a good player no matter what. So Lions here get quarterback of the future for me and Sam Howell. I believe in our last mock draft that I had the Lions picking at 32. I gave them Sam Howell anyways. So now they get two defensive stalwarts and a quarterback of the future. It's been said that they are thoroughly combing through this quarterback class. I don't think there's a way they don't pick one. I just don't think they pick one at 2. So, if you get him here in the second round, it probably allows you, if it's not working out, to pick someone next year. I don't care. Sam Howell's very good. He's my quarterback 1, and I'm not letting him fall lower than this.
Yeah, and I do want to put out there, I don't agree whatsoever with the lack of quarterbacks in the first round from Krabs' mock.
This is where grades are, though.
It is, but also I think that these guys are going to get pushed up. I think that especially a guy that we're going to talk about in a little bit. I mean, he had a really good day testing. Well, we'll see, but I don't think that this is going to be an option for them. So, but we'll see. I don't know for sure. I am on the clock now with the New York Jets, and I had them taking Lewis Seen, the safety out of Georgia. Seen had obviously he went to Georgia, so he had a good combine, but he had an incredible combine. And I actually talked about this in my mock draft back in February. I think he's a first round pick, or he's close to a first round talent, and I think he's the second best safety. And so I think that there's a chance that he goes in the first. He's just really good. He's a hard hitting guy that can play in the box, but he shows a lot of promise in coverage. I think that he can let his eyes wander and he can get kind of caught in no man's land, which might push him down for some teams. But the Jets have a decent safety room. He'd just be kind of an addition to that room. So I went with Seen here at 35.
Yeah, I think it'll be between Seen and Daxton Hill for me for safety too, once we're all said and done with this. But he is just absolutely uber talented. I know when we were typing this out, I was like, damn, he really fits what the Lions need at safety, but Sam Howell. Unfortunately. But for the Giants here next, I went with Kaiir Elam. There was other people on the board, I think, that really fit what they want. I know, so they got Thibodeau and Penning in the first. So they got a tackle, they got an edge. And with all the talk of them possibly moving on from Bradbury, I just think it's just further pushing up the need for corner for them. And Elam had a fantastic week and has good size, and I think there's a good chance he's in the first round when this is all said and done. So I think the Giants get a good quarterback in the future.
Yeah, man, I don't like his tape, but I like the athlete. So, and he's got pedigree, and NFL teams love that. I think you're right. I think there's a shot. I think his film's really sloppy. I think his technique's a little sloppy. And we'll see, maybe he cleans some of that stuff up, and maybe he gets to show a little bit of that at his pro day. So,
ideally, Bradbury doesn't leave, and he can help him iron that stuff out this year. But that's an ideal world.
Yeah, I know. All right, I am on the clock for 2 straight picks, and with the first one, I went Breece Hall to the Houston Texans. Now, no one really knows what the Texans are doing with their running back room, because the only running back they really have right now is Rex Burkhead, and that is not a long-term option. It is not really a short-term option. Rex Burkhead probably should not have been inked to an extension, but he did play well in spurts in 2021. So here we're going with
plain simple. From what the combine has told us, no one knows what the Texans are doing, period, besides most likely trading Tunsil. That's literally all we've gotten from the Texans.
Yeah, and there are some little rumors out there that Deshaun Watson trades are being heavily explored now. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe they're in the market for a quarterback. Maybe they move up and go get one in the back of the first to have a fifth-year option. They have Davis Mills there. They get the best running back in this class here at the top of the second. And then, I'm on the clock again. Damn it.
Well, you didn't really cover Breece Hall, so sorry, I kind of cut you off.
No, it's okay. So Breece, I mean, we talked about it. The athleticism was kind of like the last box for him to check, but he's pretty much everyone's RB1 at this point. He's got good ability to catch passes. I think he works in whatever scheme that they want to run, and I think that scheme versatility is going to be the thing that kind of pushes him over the edge to be the first running back off the board. I know Kenneth Walker has been kind of rumored to be that guy, but I think that will flip here in the next couple of weeks. Moving on to the 38th overall pick, the Jets are on the clock again. The Jets have a lot of capital, guys. We talked about this in our Friday fix. I went with Jeremy Ruckert, the tight end out of Ohio State. And Randy, when I typed it in the document that we did this in, he said, I can't believe you didn't go with Trey McBride. You love Trey McBride. And Trey McBride is a really good fit for what the Jets want to do. However, I think Jeremy Ruckert is more of a fit. I think they're going to want a dude that can 100% block. They don't have any questions about that. He's a nasty, nasty blocker. And he's displayed a lot of soft hands. Like he has pass catching ability. He just didn't get the work. So I think Ruckert has a shot to be the first tight end off the board. And I think that it will be in the early second, whether it's the Jets or not.
That's fine. I just know McBride's a really good blocker too. It's just, he
is.
It's a toss up there. And I don't necessarily agree with the Jets building process that we keep doing. Not your pick necessarily here, but like the defense, we keep giving them corner at 10 when I don't think the defensive line is set and the linebackers definitely aren't set. And we've seen with how I think Saleh clearly had a hand in building the defense in San Francisco when he was there. And that was clearly built through the defensive line with like 4 straight first round picks, I feel like it was, on the first round, on the D line. So while I think those are all good picks that Kyle Krabs gave them, and to some extent you here with Ruckert, even though I gave you shit about it, I think Ruckert's very talented. I'm just not sure if this is how they truly build it, but it's a pretty good build. I think a lot of people would be disappointed this isn't a wide receiver as the pass catcher and it's the tight end, but I think it works out.
Yeah, well, and for what it's worth, I think they're going wide receiver in the first round. So I would obviously do something.
Wasn't here.
I know, and that's why I went tight end, because I think that we've had 7 wide receivers come off the board already. So I think that's a tough spot to be in at 38. So.
All right. First pick of the draft so far for the Bears here for me. I went with Bernard Raymond, the offensive tackle from Central Michigan, who had a good combine. He scored pretty well, and I think him paired with Tevin Jenkins is what you want, especially what these guys want, as some absolute bullies on the outside to help dominate in the run game, which is what they do, what they're going to do best with David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Let's throw that out there as well for the rotational, but Justin Herbert or Justin Fields as well. Jesus Christ. I think that really helps become a really good offense. I know, again, another fan base that are probably wanting a wide receiver, but I know they definitely want offensive line help as well, looking at what they had to deal with last year. So, and they don't have this exuberant amount of cap room like a team like the Jets do that could fix those kind of problems. So Raymond here to the Bears, I think, is a good fit to have a good tackle pairing for the next decade. Hopefully.
Yeah, man, it just makes me a little nervous though, because like Tevin Jenkins looked pretty much like a project in his rookie year there, and I think Raymond's quite the project since he's only played the position for like 2 years. So I just get nervous that would actually stunt the growth of Justin Fields, but I also don't think it matters all that much because I think that his escapability is going to allow him to succeed, and you may as well get a rookie in there to kind of help that because they don't have good options. So.
If anything, I think they're both somewhat projects in like pass protection at times, but I think they're absolute maulers in the run game, and that's I think the identity they should build around, especially with trying to figure out the wide receiver position for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we have made it to my pivot here.
Son of a bitch.
So on the graphic, if you're watching, you see Chad Muma, the linebacker out of Wyoming. But I realized when Randy was talking earlier that Leo Chenal has not been selected. Leo Chenal is I think I have a first round grade on him now. After another couple of games and his testing numbers came through, just an athletic freak. He is one of the better blitzing linebackers that I can remember. He can line up at edge if you want. He is more like Micah Parsons than Devin Lloyd is to me. And I actually think that Leo Chenal is going to be selected before Devin Lloyd in the real NFL draft when we're past all these mocks. I know that's kind of a hot take at this point, but so yeah, don't read that. It's not Chad Muma. I'm taking Leo Chenal because he does a lot of good things.
See, I think what you just talked about is why I think you're originally right. Because I think they got that guy last year in Browning. I think you literally just described what he does for this team. So, in my opinion, I think his stalwart, actual true Mike linebacker that is Muma, and to some extent could be Charles Harris, who's still on the board as well. I think those could be better fits. But if you're building a linebacking room like that, like that's what you want your linebackers to be, I think it's obviously a clear fit because you already drafted one. So,
yeah, I will say too, I think both Browning and Chenal have the ability to cover. And I think both are
I think they do, but I don't think either are Mike linebackers. That's my point.
see, I think Chenal for sure is a Mike. Like when I watch him, I think that, maybe that's not how he gets used initially, but I think he reminds me of Leighton Vander Esch actually.
Who's an
when
outside linebacker?
Yeah, but when he was in college, he wasn't.
I
Like
know.
he was a Mike. So that's the pivot. And if you guys are watching along, just keep it in your head that Chad Muma is still on the board, and Randy might take
Right.
him later, but I don't think so.
I doubt it because I don't have this shit pulled up, Dick.
I know.
Now
I'm
I'm
sorry.
pissed because Chad Muma should be in the second round.
I know he should, and so we'll just add another pick, and Chad Muma will be the last.
Adam. Yeah. Okay, so I have another first pick of the draft for a team here for the Seahawks, and I know you're all expecting an edge rusher, but I actually went with an offensive lineman, Tyler Smith. I have him listed as an interior offensive line / tackle because I'm not quite sure he's going to be at the next level. Either way, he fits what the Seahawks need, who truly don't have. I mean, they have. You could say a good tackle, and I would say a good developmental guard in Lewis. But besides that, you really don't got much. So Tyler Smith clearly fits here. They have basically come out of the combine saying we are not moving Russell Wilson. They are sticking to that standpoint, and I think it's the standpoint that makes sense with the coach and the quarterback kind of situation where neither are necessarily young, and I guarantee Pete Carroll is not going through a rebuild. So I really don't know what to expect there. I think there's a good chance still that Russ forces his way out of there at some reason, but they also do have cap room and they can kind of fix other holes as well. Here, I give him an offensive lineman to hopefully finally fucking protect Kyler Murray. Or Kyler Murray, good God. I was talking about quarterbacks complaining. I thought of Kyler. Russell Wilson, who has never had a good offensive line.
Yeah,
I think it's been the biggest flaw of the Seattle organization, where they continue trying to build the defense because that's what worked the first part. That makes complete sense. I absolutely agree. But you also have to draft linemen and side linemen, which they just do not do.
no. Well, and they thought that they could get away with that with Russell Wilson, and turns out they can't. They can't get away with that. So you're still on the clock, by the way.
Yes, I know. Yeah, a couple more actually. So now for the Washington Commanders, they got their quarterback of the future. Love it or hate it. I'm not the biggest guy on Willis playing year one. I think Willis probably will be a very good quarterback, especially for fantasy. But I know I'm not sure I'm really happy with any of these quarterbacks starting year one. So just to say that, but they got the quarterback of the future, and now I'm looking at it where a lot of people have them drafting wide receiver as well, possibly at 11 or cornerback at 11 or offensive line at 11 or, I think wide receiver, corner, and offensive line are their biggest needs left here. But I went with Kyler Gordon, the cornerback from Washington, who has been heavily talked about the first round. He did not test necessarily perfect at the combine, not really up to standards that people wanted or had expectations of. So I think he slips down to the second round now. I think it's a good pick for the Commanders, whose secondary is really their biggest weak part on the defense. Obviously, the defensive line is really good, even though it's coming off some injuries now. The linebacker room's not particularly great either necessarily, but the secondary is definitely the worst part. And if you got a quarterback of the future and you can just kind of figure out that offense that way, you got to try and fix the defense to give Malik Willis some, positive game scripts that he's not having to throw the ball every play.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, too, I think that they're going to bank on Jamin Davis taking a step forward.
Yeah.
So I think that they just want to build around that level. Like, their first two levels are okay with young, promising players, and now they need to start pushing out and getting safeties and corners and just secondary players.
Yeah, the secondary is really bad. And I think they do think Davis is going to have a leap forward, and a healthy defensive line will help that as well. But Gordon definitely helped complete the 3-level build that they need on defense to really be a good offense in the future, in my opinion. And then finally, for me, before it goes back to you for a couple picks, the Falcons, I want David Bell. This is obviously before all the, news today of Calvin Ridley. We did this a little bit earlier in the day. We'll see what really happens with that. It's now even come out that he, didn't bet on any of the Falcons games, which what we initially were told. And, obviously he has no involvement in the NFL at that point because he was away from football. So we'll see what happens. I think there's a good chance the year suspension sticks, but there's also a decent chance with a good case and everything that he could at least be reduced and maybe he still gets traded. I don't think he stays with the Falcons regardless. So they need wide receiver of the future, and they got a pass rusher of the future in the first round, and Trayvon Walker. So one of the better ones. Kind of fits what they already have in D tackle, but a little bit more speed on it. But here in the second round, I went with David Bell, a guy that I'm higher on than a lot of people, it seems like. And it's really because they have a 12 personnel attack. They have their tight end weapon in Kyle Pitts. That's their offense, as well as running the ball and having most likely Cordero Patterson back to be a little bit of an all-around kind of guy as well. David Bell does everything good. That's plain simple. I've already heard a ton of comparisons with him and Rashad Bateman of last year. Not necessarily the testing numbers, clearly, but because David Bell is definitely a loser of the combine. He did not test well. So I think he probably falls later than this. But for me, the only picks for the Falcons at wide receiver that made sense here were Bell or Christian Watson. And again, I think this team overperformed last year and almost made the playoffs. I think they maybe have the same kind of record next year, so I'm not going to get them a receiver I think is more win now. Bell, I think, can develop into one of the better receivers of the class, and is a do-it-all receiver for this team, which is what they really need to pair with an elite weapon on the outside like Pitts.
Yeah, I do want to say I think it was cool that he knew that he tested poorly, and then did an interview. He was in good spirits. He kept his head up through it. And I think he honestly did all the tests because he said, here, look, I'm not that athletic and it doesn't even matter because I've still been dominant at the collegiate level. So I do think that teams are going to respect him for that. And maybe he still slides into day 2, but I think round 2 is a little rich for me, but that's why we do these. This is why it's not, me writing this. Yeah.
And you also got to remember for this draft particularly, there's already been, 8 receivers off the board?
Yeah.
So the receivers are starting, while it is a deeper class, the top end guys that could be wide receiver 1 potential, especially wide receiver 2s, are starting to dry up and be a little bit more high upside guys, like Austin and a few others like that, where you're taking a shot at him. Where Bell, you just know he's going to be a good receiver at the next level. Whether it's worth this pick or not, I think it is.
Yeah. That's fair. All right. I am on the clock for the Cleveland Browns, which is exciting.
And terrifying.
Yes, yeah, that is true. So I don't think that the Browns are going wide receiver in the first round. I think that they're going a different direction. However, there are reports, and in this mock draft, they went with Jamison Williams. So I went with Travis Jones, the defensive tackle out of Connecticut. He was another big winner of the combine. If all of the Georgia players didn't exist, then we'd be talking about Travis Jones extensively. Just an athletic freak. He ran, I think, 4.8, 4.9, something like that. Something ridiculous for a player his size.
He's just for people who don't know much about him because he is from UConn. He is the same weight, I believe, as Jordan Davis. I think he's a little bit shorter, but same weight, same build. So it was definitely as impressive, even though he was a little bit slower.
Yeah, and I'll say better pass rushing techniques. I think he's versatile enough to play like 4-3-3 tech, or just slot into a 1 tech in any type of situation. So just a guy that I think really fits what the Browns want from their defensive tackles.
Yeah, and he's also a guy that, where Davis obviously dominated with tons of talent around him as well. Travis Jones had no talent around him at UConn, really, especially on the defensive line. He was getting double and triple team damn near every play and still making plays.
Yeah, it was crazy. He's a crazy player. He's a first round player for me. So the Browns getting him at 44. Again, this is why I think there are 50 players that could go in the
JOK of last year, where we're like, how the fuck? Okay, we'll take it.
Exactly. I'm not going to argue it at all. All right, and then I'm still on the clock with the Baltimore Ravens, and I went with Sean Ryan, the offensive tackle out of UCLA. Some project him into guard. I think that he has positional versatility. Sean Ryan was a name that, I tossed him in my first round or my first mock draft when I wrote it. No one said anything, but I know people were saying, well, that guy's crazy, because no one has been really on Sean Ryan, but he's a really athletic dude. I think Tyler Smith is up there too. I think those two players are very, very similar in that they're athletic. They have a few footwork issues, I think, that they can maybe get past a tackle, but because they are just maulers and they're very strong and they have good anchors, they're going to be looked at as high-end offensive line prospects, whether they're a guard or tackle. So the Ravens need this because they went with Stingley in the first round. So I rolled with Sean Ryan.
Yep, they need offensive lineman help. Doesn't matter if it's guard or tackle.
Right.
And then I get another sneak pick in here before you get another back-to-back. For the Vikings, who in the hell did they get? I'm trying to see how the pairings go. So they got Trent McDuffie in the first, which is a little bit of a surprise. I'm completing the secondary rehaul overall here with Daxton Hill at safety for Michigan. Arguably second best safety in the class. Obviously, I think it's definitely arguably third if he's arguably second. But he also tested incredibly well at the combine. He is an athletic freak. He is a matchup guy as well. He's a movement piece in the back end. I think this is a good fit for the Vikings, who really haven't had a ton of good secondary play for the last 5 or so years, except Harrison Smith, who is also a lot older, so getting a replacement piece that also is a little bit of a move-around guy like Harrison was at times, especially when he was a little bit younger. I think it's a good pick here and a good pairing with Harrison, and let Harrison be just that over-the-top killer like he wants to be anyways. Even if he is getting a little bit up there in age, I think Hill is a perfect eventual replacement for him, and clearly a huge replacement for Anthony Harris, which they still haven't replaced.
Right. And I do want to clear this up. So you keep saying how surprising Trent McDuffie was. The mock that I didn't release, that I wrote and just didn't drop, I also had them taking McDuffie. So that's actually one of my favorite picks. I think he fits what they're going to want to do.
I guess I probably shouldn't overemphasize surprising. It was just a surprise to me, him going at 12, really.
Before Stingley is.
Before Stingley, and I believe before
Booth.
That's why it was surprising.
He was at CB2, yeah.
Yeah, CB2 surprising to me. But he is actually very talented. I think he's probably going to easily have a first-round grade, in my opinion. So I'm perfectly fine with him there, but I think this is smart by the Vikings, who have to completely overhaul this defense if they are going to keep this offense going in the same direction for this next season. The defense is mostly free agents and veterans, so you need to overhaul it.
Yeah. All right. With the 47th pick, I don't know how this player is still on the board after the combine that he had. And
I almost took him at 46, by the way.
that's
and
that's
43 and 41.
Listen, I think Desmond Ritter's going in the first round. I tweeted that during the combine, but it's something that I've been saying for a long time. If you're betting on trades, I mean, I have Ritter graded higher than Malik Willis again. It's just I don't think that even I thought that Ritter was that level of athlete, and some of that doesn't show up on film because he was a pass first guy. But him falling all the way to 47, this is like an automatic sprint the card. In the Colts are going to need a quarterback. I don't think that they're going to find one via the market. Maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo, but is that really an upgrade from Wentz?
Yeah.
And then also the Wentz money, they may be better suited to just keep him if they can't find a trade. So why not just draft a guy that you have full faith in? I think that if Ritter's gone, I think this could be Carson Strong, but I think that this pick is going to be a quarterback for the Colts.
I think that's a really good shot. Ritter tested incredibly well, and we both like his game. It's just, he's not as talented as some of the other guys, but he's in the same range. So,
yeah, for sure. And then I'm on the clock again with the Los Angeles Chargers, and I took Roger McCreary, the corner out of Auburn. I think some teams are going to be off of him because his arms are short, but I'll tell you what, his ball skills are some of the best in the class, and he's really sticky. I think that he can play in the slot. I think that he preferably play in the slot, but they won't necessarily need him to do that. They've got just a pretty big need at corner. They tried to fill it with veterans, and it didn't quite work last year, and their passing defense was pretty shit. So I think they're going to look to add a day 2 corner here.
Yeah, it helps shore up the back end where they already shored up the entire defensive line by picking a guy that takes up the entire defensive line at 17, Jordan Davis. So I think it's smart too, and it allows them, even if they keep most of the veterans, it gives them more of a extra body when they go light boxes with Jordan Davis in there as well. So. Yeah. All right, finally back on the clock for one pick. And I have the Saints, and I'm going the quarterback that a lot of people probably think you should have taken, and that's Kenny Pickett, the quarterback from Pitt. I actually personally think that swapping these two are the best fits for the two teams.
Probably.
And, with Kenny Pickett being in – with the Colts being in the AFC South, they play in a dome, and Houston, good weather. Jacksonville, usually pretty good weather. Tennessee, usually decent weather. So I think Kenny Pickett could kind of thrive there. And with the weapons, I think he could really do a lot of damage and build behind the running game. I think he can also do a lot of damage with the Saints, though, especially with Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. I think he could really stand out here. I think there's a good chance they have Jameis back. And I think we both think Jameis played well enough to get that shot and possibly be the quarterback of the future. But why not take a shot here and get another chance at it for good value? I mean, getting Kenny Pickett in the second at pick 49, or Desmond Ridder for that matter at pick 49, or Carson Strong, I don't give a shit who it is. If you can get a quarterback here at 49 and you solved wide receiver help earlier, and you get a cheaper quarterback now because of where the pick is, I think this is an incredible draft pick.
Yeah, I think they're going to take a quarterback in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I think they have to, even if they keep Winston for a 1-year deal. But I'm not sure they can afford Winston if he plays well.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I am back on the clock. Pick 50, the Dolphins. We're kind of getting a little low on offensive tackles, but yes. I went with Daniel Falele, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota. Just a massive, massive human who played right tackle. And guess what? Teams need right tackles, and especially the Dolphins. Now, I do get concerned. I don't think his movement skills really fit what's his face, Mike McDaniel. What's his face? That nerdy guy that likes to make people laugh. What Mike McDaniel wants to do. But I also think that we know that he can be scheme versatile. He's been in the Shanahan system for a long time, but I think just getting a big freaking body to protect Tua's blind side is a huge priority this year. So went with Falele.
Yeah, and he might not have to do much more movement stuff, especially if they keep Robert Hunt at right guard as well, to clear out most of the space that they need.
Right.
All right. Finally, I'm back on the clock, it feels like, even though I just picked. But for the Eagles, again, I picked for them at 51 here. I went with Christian Harris, the linebacker from Bama. Yeah, I know Muma's there. Damn you. I think I might.
To Muma?
No, I'm not pivoting. I don't do that. I think I'm not sure Muma fits better for what the Eagles want either.
I don't think he does.
I think Harris actually kind of fits a little bit better. And it's, it's not the first round, so they could actually pick a linebacker. I'm hoping that tune changes and they pick Dean or Lloyd because it's truly what they actually need. But I think they filled a lot of needs in the first round, and why not fill another level need, which they never fill in the linebacker here with Christian Harris, the linebacker for Bama. He had a little bit, I would say, I think people a disappointing year, people would say. But it's mainly because of Dean and Lloyd getting more press, it seemed like. And there's just, I don't think people were all about this Bama defense necessarily this year. I think that's very fair because the offense was so goddamn exciting. The defense didn't really need to shut everyone out. So I think Harris actually is a great value pick at 51 here for the Eagles and easily becomes their best linebacker, in my opinion, at least. And I actually do love Singleton. I love how he plays.
Yeah. I mean, they needed to pick a linebacker. Like you said, I think that we hope that they break their mold and do it for the first time in, 40 years, 50 years, however long it's been.
Yeah, but I think we both would say if they got, which I believe it's Andrew Booth, too. So if they got Andrew Booth, David Ajabo, Tyler Linderbaum, and then waited to the second to get either Chanel, Muma, or Harris.
Yeah.
I think we would be absolutely ecstatic about that draft for the Eagles.
Yeah. All right. I have 3 picks in a row here. So there is like a 4-pick run that Randy's about to have in a little bit, but
and then you get 3 right after. Don't
I know.
Make this seem like I got all the picks.
I know. So with 52, the Pittsburgh Steelers, because they went quarterback in the first round, selecting Matt Corral, I think that their biggest need is actually offensive tackle. Of course, they do need a quarterback, but Abraham Lucas was another winner of the Combine, but he was a player that I actually really liked, and I could not understand why there was no buzz behind this player. He's athletic, he's strong, he's got a good anchor, he's got a good frame. He's just a guy that I think can step right in and be a day one starter for a team like the Steelers. Now, I think Falele probably fits what they look for in tackles, but unfortunately he's gone. And maybe we do flip those 2 picks too in another world where Lucas has a little bit more movement and Falele actually does what the Steelers have traditionally wanted to do. But I don't think that the Steelers want to do what they have traditionally done with a new quarterback that can move around a little bit too. So.
Yeah, we'll see. I personally think Petit Frere fits what they like a little bit better too. What's on the board here, at least. But Lucas obviously had a better week than Frere, so I get the jump here, and I think we may be slightly overreaching for the tackles for a couple of these teams. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think they're probably second round or early day 3 or early round 3 talents, but the Steelers absolutely have a desperate need at it, so they have to reach. I don't give a shit. Exactly. Maybe they go for guard instead, but they need tackles badly.
Yeah, I actually think that their guard situation is better, which is why I didn't.
Exactly.
But I would have gone with Lecitus Smith out of Virginia Tech for what it's worth. That was my backup pick here. If someone told me I couldn't take Abraham Lucas, I don't know who's telling me that though.
Yeah, I don't know either.
All right, 53, the Las Vegas Raiders. Randy said thank you when I typed this in, but Christian Watson, the wide receiver out of North Dakota State, we talked about him earlier, so I won't harp on, but just an athletic freak that can be used on jet sweeps and pop passes, but also has a pretty decent route tree. I think that's the more impressive thing that I saw from him. He was running digs, he was running goes, he was running comebacks. Like, that's not stuff you always see, but that North Dakota State offense is very pro-esque, pro, I don't know. We've been talking for a long time, but yeah, Watson to the Raiders, they need speed too. I mean, he fits everything that they need.
They need speed, big body outside. That's Christian Watson. It's the perfect pick, and they are, at all counts pointing, a win now team as well.
Yeah, 100%. Although there's the rumor that they're not 100% sold on Derek Carr, but that's bullshit. Derek Carr's going to be the quarterback, I think.
Yeah. The only way they're not is if someone gives them like 2 or 3 first-round picks. Like,
yeah,
it's the only way they're not. It's good, but we'll see.
Browns are coming. All right, 54. I went with John Mechie to the New England Patriots. This is just a fit that makes too much sense. Mac Jones's favorite weapon, second favorite weapon from his Alabama championship run. Because Waddle went down early in that season, and then Devontae Smith also got hurt late in the year. Mechie kind of stepped in to be his favorite target. And I talked about Mechie a little bit on Twitter yesterday, and I said he's just a wide receiver 2 that does everything well. Now, I expect the Patriots to be in the market for a free agent wide receiver. I think Kendrick Bourne is a nice piece that they have in that room. And I think that those 3 would make up quite a good set of weapons for Mac Jones to kind of take that next step in his sophomore year.
John Mechie, I think the perfect way to describe him, especially his college career, is a wide receiver 2 that when it's needed for him to be the wide receiver 1, he's dominant at it. In every game that he has had to been the wide receiver 1, he was the go-to guy. He made every first down catch. He wasn't electric with it. He just caught the ball, maybe got an extra yard. That was it. But he caught every fucking ball, and he moved every chain. He made every play that was asked of him. And I think he's absolutely going to be dominant if he lands on the Patriots there. You have a gadget guy in Bourne, like you said. You kind of have Aguilar. I don't know if he sticks around. But Jacoby Myers is the slot guy. Mechie can just be your outside dominant winner. And that's what this is the type of receiver they need, too. They don't need pure speed anymore. They don't need a gadget guy. They don't need a big body guy. They need people to get the fuck open, because that's the only way that Mac Jones is going to work.
That's true. All right, you're on the clock.
Yeah, all right. Cardinals, they got the offensive lineman of the future for sure in Zion Johnson, wherever the fuck he plays for them. And I followed it up here with Cameron Thomas. There's like a little flick on my screen. I was like, did I type an L? That's wrong. Cameron Thomas here, the edge from San Diego State. I think there's other edges here that also fit what the Cardinals are really looking at. I think a guy that I probably overlooked for this would be like Drake Jackson. I think he actually is a guy that's been very undervalued so far. I think he probably is a second-round pick, in my opinion. He didn't play as well as we thought he would for this season, but still very, very fucking talented. And he kind of fits what the Cardinals like. But Cameron Thomas, I think at least if they move on from J.J. Watt, I think he can get you that kind of role at least early on. And that's kind of where, like, that's your hope that he gets to that kind of level. Obviously not J.J. Watt level, but that kind of like movable piece on the defensive line. I think he's very talented, and he fits what they need at edge. And I also don't absolutely love the corners necessarily on the board here, and maybe they need another wide receiver, but here you just picked Mechie. It kind of screws me over. So yeah. Cameron Thomas, I think, is the best of both here, but I think edge is definitely what they take here. And then followed it up with the Cowboys getting finally a safety and Jaquan Brisker. Really, probably he's among the last of the top safeties on the board. The Cowboys are absolutely ecstatic that they got a defensive tackle in the first round to shore up the middle, and Winfrey was one of the better ones. And they get one of the better safeties here, which two of the biggest positional needs for them on the defense. So I think the Cowboys absolutely win in this kind of scenario. And, he tested really well as well. I think it's a good move. And this way, I know you kind of, again, I don't love the corners here. I know they need a corner too. Maybe you think they need a replacement at linebacker for Van Der Esch and all that. I know they're talking about cutting edge rushers, so maybe get another one there. But I think
There's been a lot.
there's an argue. I think for offensive line here as well. I think I was really deciding between Brisker, Petrie, and Dylan Parham here, in my opinion, were my three choices. But I went with the safety.
Yeah. All right. I'm on the clock finally for just a brief moment. Yeah, for a brief moment here.
Give me a quick breather.
Yeah, and I had the Bills select Marvin Leal, the defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. I get worried about Leal because I think he's more tweener than hybrid, meaning I think that he's positionless and not a multi-position guy. I don't think that he has enough bend to play edge, and I don't know that he has the frame to play inside. But I think that the Bills are kind of built with a ton of guys like that, and I think just adding skilled, a lot of the same guys that can do a lot of the same things, I think that makes sense in team building, and I think that they're going to like a guy like this where I still think you can mold him. I still think that there is room for him to grow, and maybe he develops more bend, or maybe he just has to bulk up and move inside. Either way, I like for them to take a defensive lineman here.
Yeah, and their GM at the Combine pretty much said that much as well, where they build through the defensive line, and he doesn't think they're complete either. So whether that's free agency or whatever it has to be, I think they take a defensive lineman early here, and I think Leal fits what they like, exactly like you said. I think he fits what they want. I do think they probably put 10 or 15 on him and tell him you're a 3-tech and just go at it, because they picked 2 edge rushers last year as well. But they're going to keep fighting at this position. They've got a receiver of the future to pair with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. And the offense is pretty well set then. Maybe some offensive line stuff here, maybe a running back to be a dominant, but I think you continue to keep building on this defense and try and make it so Josh Allen doesn't have to score in overtime.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of running backs for the Falcons here, who, solved other issues, wide receiver and edge rusher, I went with Kenneth Walker here. I truly thought his performance valued him to be going in the second. And the Falcons are actually a perfect fit, in my opinion, where the coaching staff, this is the running back they want. They don't necessarily want the pass catching running back. They want you to be able to, catch it. But we're talking about, Arthur Smith, who put together the Tennessee offense and just sat and ran behind the sleigh that is King Henry. And I think they're going to try and build that same kind of offense with Kenneth Walker. And that's the perfect fit for him, honestly. Let him fucking grind through these teams, just like he did with Michigan State, except against Ohio State. And just absolutely keep doing that. Bring back Cordero Patterson to do the in-between stuff. And they actually have an absolute dominant offense then, I think. If they can get the receiver core what they want, they can keep building the offensive line. They have the pieces to be there, so I don't think Arthur Smith gets fired, kind of thing. Like, I don't think he gets fired if they suck again this year, but I think he starts to go on the hot seat. But I think you put enough of the pieces around that sets his offense up for the future if you do what this draft says.
Yeah.
And then I followed that up with the Packers. They got edge rusher of the future in the first round. I think everyone's mock drafting the Packers, at least of right now. Same with the Broncos, as if Rodgers is in Green Bay. He's not in Denver, which I think is the only 2 outcomes. Or, well, I guess the third outcome is he's retired. So Parham here helps the offensive line, which had a lot of injuries last year. They truly need to retool it, whether that's for Rodgers or Love. They need to get pieces on that offensive line for the future. And Parham is one of our more favorite interior guys of the draft. He's a hard worker. I think he tested relatively well. I don't remember what his scores were necessarily, but Parham actually is going to be a really good fit for them. I know they necessarily could use probably more of a tackle, but again, we've kind of pilfered the tackle class. I think getting a high value guard is a better pick for the Packers.
Yep. I like Parm. I haven't graded him yet, so I don't have
Yes,
a
I
lot to
don't
say
have a
about
grade on him yet. Following up with the Buccaneers, they got Drake London in the first round. Carson Strong was here, and it was kind of a thought process for me, but I think you picked Kyle Trask in the second round last year. While I think Carson Strong's a better quarterback, I don't think that's good team building, especially for a team that seems to be in a complete rebuild now. I think you get pieces, and what they really need is to rebuild the cornerback room, because even if they bring back Carlton Davis this year, they have two more corners that are free agents next year. They have a safety that's a free agent this year, and Whitehead as well. I think getting Tariq Woolen, the cornerback from UTSA, is a good move here, especially because if you do bring back Carlton Davis, he doesn't have to really, be a standout corner one this year, or even a corner two necessarily, because he is still, seemingly pretty fresh to the position. He still has a lot to kind of ink out there, but he is one of the more dominant athletes we saw at the combine. I think and he's 6'4" too. He's enormous for a corner. He's a dominant athlete. I think he fits the build of corners that they really like, because they do like the bigger corners. So I think it's a good fit. And I think it's a place where you can develop and really be a standout performer in year two here for the Buccaneers.
Yep.
And then finally, for me, my last pick of this draft, for the 49ers, almost went safety, which would have screwed up what Christian does. I almost went a few different things. The 49ers are in a weird spot. I think they get an extra pick either in the third or fourth round, most likely, for Jimmy G. But obviously that doesn't affect this pick. I think they need to kind of look at getting interior offensive linemen for the future. And I went with Jamari Sailor, the interior offensive lineman from Georgia, who had a really good testing this week, as well. Every Georgia player did. Sailor, he's not the best guard in the class, in my opinion, by any means, but I think he can easily be a starter for them. I think he could be a good mover. He was able to continually make big holes for one cutbacks at Georgia. I think that's exactly the type of offensive lineman that the 49ers want. So,
Yeah, he's a good fit. I am intrigued by him. Another guy that I haven't graded just yet, so I'm excited to see where he falls for me. And then I'm going to finish out this draft with the last three picks, and I'm going to go fairly quickly because we're way over what we normally do. First up, the Chiefs, Jalen Petrie, the safety out of Baylor. He didn't run the 40 because he wasn't going to run a good 40, and he knew that. But he looked really, really smooth during the on-field workouts, and he looks really smooth when he's playing at Baylor. I think he's a guy that plays a lot in the box, but I think that there is some coverage skill to him at this point. The Chiefs, there's rumors that Honey Badger will be testing out free agency, and so they desperately need a safety to kind of go with Juan Thornhill and that other guy that we don't speak of as Browns fans.
a lot of the feeling around the league is Honey Badger's gone.
Yeah. So they're going to need to replace that. They do have a lot of needs. I thought about going Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State to be an edge rusher for them, but I actually think that their pass rush is okay. I think their corners and safeties are going to take a pretty big hit this year because they weren't very good last year. So, the pass rush was.
And they can get at least a passable rotational edge in the next round, where I don't think they can at safety. So,
right. All right. And then 63, I went Nicholas Petit-Frere, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. For the Bengals in the first round, they got Kenyon Green. And that's not all the help they need on that offensive line. And honestly,
that's a good fucking start.
Yeah. So honestly,
that's the right side of the line right there.
Exactly. And Petit-Frere, he's probably a right tackle at the next level. His anchor is a little rough, and his explosives at the combine were really bad, and that kind of all adds up. But I think getting into the Bengals training facility and kind of putting on some pounds, putting on some muscle, I think that's going to be good for him, and I think he can keep Burrow's front side unscathed, but his blind side would probably be a problem, so they probably won't play him at left tackle. And then finally, the Broncos. Randy texted me after
Chad
this.
Muma. No.
Yeah, they're taking two linebackers. No, I went with Sky Moore, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan. And I know it's not a need, and I know they just paid all their wide receivers, but this is an ultimate case of best player available. I know that they have that other small, little, fast guy that I can't think of his name. He always gets
Hamilton?
hurt. Hamler, KJ Hamler.
Hamler. They have like
yeah.
6 receivers. That's it.
Yeah, they have so many receivers. But here's the thing: the Broncos, they don't have tons of needs. I didn't like I thought about Darian Kendrick to go alongside Patrick Surtain. There were things that I could have done, but Sky Moore was by far the best player available. He is in the 20s on my big board, and I think that teams are going to view him in the top 50. So if he falls to 64, I think that some team is going to move up to get him, even if it's not the Broncos making that pick. So.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. They got a linebacker early in the draft of the future. Much earlier before that, they got an edge rusher of the future. It helped the run defense. It really was the bigger things. Maybe a pure D tackle. I just think, and I think your last pick really may have been the deciding factor in this as well. I think offensive line's probably their next biggest need there, or maybe safety to pair with Simmons, but both, again, we have destroyed in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. Us and Kyle Krabs, we've just taken so many. Honestly, it was a nice break for wide receivers for a while. I kind of figured you're going to pick Sky, but I figured it's just weird. It's a weird fit for me, but talent-wise, I think you're probably right in the best player available type scenario. It's just weird, like I said. Yeah. But it does probably give them the ability to figure out an out for one of these receivers in the next year or so.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. They've extended the receivers they wanted to extend, and Jerry Jeudy hasn't really done a whole lot either. And neither is KJ Hamler.
Still his second year. They're not going to extend him.
Well, this is year 3. I mean, they're going to be so they're approaching the second to last year unless they pick up his 5th year. And he hasn't done enough to pick up his 5th year yet, in my opinion. So
we'll see.
Also, there are going to be trades in the real NFL draft, and so someone's going to trade up and go get Sky anyway. So
yeah, and I think there's multiple teams that I could have easily done Sky for the Packers. I don't know what their builds are. They just want these big body receivers, and it doesn't work out. So I don't know what the fuck to do with them.
Or I think Amari Rodgers, who was just bad. So.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals. Falcons. There's multiple teams just in the back end here that he would have fit as well. Maybe if the first round goes a different way, they go a different way in the second round. So I think there's a good chance Sky Moore. I want to get through my grade on him before I speak, but I think I'm going to have him as round 2, but we'll see.
That's where I'm at on him, I believe. But all right, that'll do it. That is next week. That'll do it for this episode of The Cut. Remember, if you guys are listening to this on the podcast, just make sure you subscribe and leave us a 5-star review if you so choose. Randy, we have not decided a team for the Friday fix yet. And we're not going to do it right now because we've gone over, but we can talk about it off the air. But we will be back for the Friday fix this Friday. Yes. We traditionally go live around 10 o'clock. It kind of varies at times, but check that out. Do you have anything else to add before we get out of
here? No. Well, I think it's going to be a weird discussion on what we're going to do for Friday, though. I don't know. There's so many teams. I don't think we're even going to ever do the Panthers for this cycle. Not necessarily. They just don't have the money we want. They don't have the draft capital, and really they have to figure out quarterback, and that's the only thing. So, it's a weird draft. I don't think we're gonna do them. And that next team is the Falcons, and again another weird thing. I think if we could have traded away Calvin Ridley, maybe that would have been more enticing. I don't think that's happening now. So the next highest team would be the Broncos, which we're not doing without Sweet. So that's a whole nother discussion and everything. So we'll figure it out. But I think the next highest team we might do would probably be The Browns?
You think?
It's 13, man. We're not. Who's at 11? Like, we're not doing 11.
Commanders. I think that would be a fun one. They have good capital. They have some money. They do have a quarterback situation, but like we're gonna have to face the quarterback situations at some point, even though it sucks and no one knows what is happening. So
we could. We'll probably put that off for another week or so, though. We'll see. There's plenty of teams we talked about last week as well, possibly doing, but I don't know. Maybe a more challenging one I want to do this week. Who knows?
It's fair. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of The Cut. We will be back too. If you don't catch the Friday Fix, we'll be back next week with our wide receiver rankings for the 2022 NFL Draft. So be sure to catch us back here next week at 10:30. I'm not dropping a mock draft. I mentioned that.
I thought about it too.
Yeah.
I thought about doing it before the show and all that, but
here's the thing.
There's so many
free agency.
Free agency. I did my first one after the first week of free agency last year, and I felt so much better about it because there's so many questions being answered. And I think the same thing, especially with these trades. I believe we are supposed to hear about Rodgers' future by Tuesday, so tomorrow or today if you're listening on podcast. So we'll see, but again, that's the biggest question. Russell Wilson, biggest question. Jimmy G, like there's multiple people like that are enormous question marks. So I kind of want to wait till after that as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and I was gonna say I'm also writing mine after free agency. I did write a whole mock draft, and I said, I've been doing one a month, and I want my March one to be after free agency or the first week at least. So, so be on the lookout for that, I guess. All right. I think that'll do it. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys on Friday. Later.